I don't know how many of you realize this, but we're dealing with an evil that has infiltrated every section and every segment of our lives. You may not realize it, but that's exactly the truth. This is an evil that's been going on for a long time. It's an evil that's tried to take over the world and continues to try to take over the world. And it's evil that hates God's way. It wants to destroy God's people and has made every effort to do so for many years. It's a tool of Satan, and it's a tool of Satan for deception, and it's a tool of Satan for destruction, because it causes people to deny the true God. And it sounds perfectly normal when you look at it. I mean, all the world looks at it and says, yeah, that's the way it should be. But it's wrong. It's evil. It's hidden in plain sight. But the world doesn't see it. We can see it because we recognize where it's coming from. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to take a look at this evil and what its name is, so that we can recognize it when we see it if we don't recognize it already. You know, I'm going to tell you now, you don't recognize it in all its forms, because I didn't recognize it in all its form when I started the study. So let's start off in Genesis 6:1. Let's go back to the beginning and find out how this all happened, how this evil got started. And just so you'll know, the evil we're talking about is the Babylonian mystery religion. It is a religion, and it sounds perfectly normal to the world around us. But we're going to find out it is not. It hates God's ways. Genesis 6 and verse 1, it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they choose. Now the book of Enoch, and I didn't even read the book of Enoch trying to prepare for this today. I would not recommend the book of Enoch as scripture, by the way. But there are some interesting things that are being talked about in the book of Enoch, and it is quoted by several people in the scriptures. But the book of Enoch calls them angels, and even names quite a few of them. So, again, I'm not saying we should adopt it as a scripture, but it's interesting reading because it explains some things that are not explained in the scripture. One of them that's explained is this business about the sons of God going into the daughters of men. And it talks about them being angels. Now, we all know that Jesus said when he was on earth that, well, you know, people and the angels don't reproduce because they're you know, when they were talking about men having a wife, all the brothers having a wife, and Jesus had to say, well, you know what, you don't even understand the angels. But we don't know when God made that happen. So all I know is that what Enoch says and what the scripture says, that the sons of God saw daughters of men. And there is some sort of a difference that's being proclaimed there. And why Moses wrote it this way, I really don't know. But in Enoch, it does appear to proclaim them as being angels. So in verse 3 it says, the Yahweh said, my spirit shall not always strive with men, so that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So at that point, God shortened man's lifetime to 120 years. And we know it was shortened again later on. That's not really important for us. But because of the problems, God says, I can't have them living 800-900 years like this. I just can't do that. So he shortens it to 120 years. I guess sufficient in 120 years was the evil that men could do. And there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, they bore children to them, or let's just, actually children is not there, it says they bore to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. So, if in fact it was angels, and if for some reason they weren't able to reconfigure their bodies so that they could procreate, God didn't like that. Whatever it was, God didn't like it. And we know that this was the underlying cause of the evil that caused God to say, that's it, I'm wiping them out. I'm done with them. And, of course, we also know that because of that evil, there was only one family that was left that God found worthy of bringing through the flood. And what we're going to find as we go through this, we're going to find that even one of them was a practitioner of this religion. that we're talking about today. And he brought it through the flood. Anyway, God had determined to wipe out all life, but Noah found favor. And so turn over to Genesis 9, and we'll start there on this next one. So God's favor protected Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives. And they came through the flood, as I said, being decent men except for one of them. Verse 18 now. Genesis 9, verse 18. The sons of Noah that went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. Now, why does the writer do that? Ham is the father of Canaan. Why would you think he singled that guy out? Well, you're going to find out here in a minute. These are the 3 sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. And Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and was drunk. And he lay uncovered within his tent. So Noah, he's a man of righteousness. God saved him through the flood, but he wasn't perfect. Kind of like us. We try to do the right things, but we're not perfect. We make mistakes. We have wrong thoughts. We have wrong actions sometimes. So did Noah. In this case, he had a little bit too much of that wine he was making. And he probably passed out in his tent. And when he did, he wasn't covered up properly. And Ham, verse 22, the father of Canaan, we just mentioned in the verse 18 up there, he saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brethren without, or on the outside. He went outside and told his 2 brothers that he had seen it. Now, we're not sure what that means by it, where it says he saw the nakedness of his father. We're sure it means at least that. We're not sure what else it means. And Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on their shoulders, went backwards, covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine, and he knew what his younger son had done to him. See, now it says he did something to him. We don't know what it was, but he said he did something to him. And he said, "Cursed be Canaan." Now, Canaan didn't do this, did he? Who did this? Ham, right? Okay. "Cursed be Canaan, a servant shall be unto his brethren. And the sons of," well, no, we're not going there yet. So he cursed Canaan for Ham's sin. See that? And we know for a fact that the Canaanites were whipped soundly by the Israelites from time to time, just because of this curse that was put on them. But he got a curse for something that his father did. Now, over to Genesis 10 now. We're still looking for this mystery religion. And we're going to get there. So the sons of Ham, Genesis 10 verse 6, the sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim. By the way, the words Mizraim, that's the land of Egypt, that we know as the land of Egypt. It used to be called Mizraim. Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush were Seba, Havilah, Sabda, Rama, Sabteca, and the sons of Rama, Sheba, and Dedan. And notice verse 8. And Cush begat Nimrod. And he began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a very powerful man. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Now, that word before means in the face of. The Hebrew word means in the face of. So he was a mighty hunter in God's face. He didn't care what God had to say. Wherefore it said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. And he also had Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Now, why is this important? So we're going to see, and I did a lot of research for this, we're going to see that this mystery religion came through the flood with Ham. And it was passed down to his sons, Cush, and to his grandson, right? To Nimrod. Okay, so, and you can do a lot of research on Nimrod, and there's a ton of things you can find in the internet about Nimrod. Real good research has been done on him. And I would encourage you to do that, because we're not going to cover a tenth part of what's out there to understand this particular religion. Now, I looked at the Center for Messianic Learning, an article called Babylon's Mystery Religion, It says it's the source of all false religions. According to some traditions, Nimrod is the same person as Zoroaster, who founded Zoroastrianism. And now, Zoroastrianism had the concept of one God, but in three parts. Does that sound familiar? What's that called in today's? The Trinity, right? Yeah. Exactly right. That's called the Trinity. Catholic Church still calls it that. They had the concept of one God in three parts. But they taught one God with just three parts. And they didn't teach all these various other gods that the religions eventually picked up. So it was called Zoroastrianism in ancient Iran, and that was 3,500 or so years ago. Nimrod is also known as Jupiter, Osiris, and Mars. If you look at all the lore that's sprung up around the pagan lore that's sprung up around all these false gods that are out there, you'll find that they all go back and talk about a flood. They all go back and talk about these first peoples after the flood, and they give them different names, but they all end up going back to Nimrod and his family. In fact, if you wanted to actually do some more research, there was a stele that had some ancient Sumerian writing on it. It talks about Noah. It talks about Shem and Ham and Japheth and the sons of Ham, but they give them different names. So it's interesting if you wanted to go back and read that and find out kind of more about how this all came to pass. But main thing is that this Zoroastrianism was established as a actual religion by Nimrod. And one thing about Zoroastrianism is that it's a secret religion. You can't just join it. Does that sound familiar? You cannot just join Zoroastrianism. You have to be invited in by somebody. In fact, over time, when they were more powerful, they would actually persecute other religions that were out there. Sound familiar? Yeah, the Catholic Church did that, didn't it? Yeah. Actually, if they could get away with it, they'd still do it now, I'm sure. Well, maybe not, because now they recognize that all the other churches are just Catholic-like. Or they've said as much anyway. Actually, Zoroastrianism is still around today, but it's still a mystery. It's a mystery religion, and it's not widely known unless you actually take the time and effort to go in and find out about it, because you can't just join it and be a part of it and learn about it. It's a closed religion. You just can't go at it and get into it. It's shrouded in mystery. Converts, if you convert to Zoroastrianism, you're rarely accepted by those who are already there. You're like the Jews do. You're considered a proselyte. You're not really a Jew. Yeah, that's kind of sad, isn't it? Yeah. It's not how God's way is supposed to be, is it? No. What's God's way supposed to be like? Somebody comes in, you accept them as a brother. You love them. You help them. Encyclopedia Britannica has this to say. It says the religion of Saul is an elaborate syncretistic theology that was developed to show that all the known gods of all the nations were nothing but the provisional names for the Son God. Now, why do I bring that up? Because when you go back and look at these ancient items that are out there, you find that the sun disk that was created, they found one in the Aztec pyramids, and they found them over in that part of the world as well. It actually developed around the same time as this mystery religion in Babylon, because there was one that they worship as the sun god, and it was not Nimrod initially. It was his father, Cush. So that's where the origin of this star disk, or the sun disk, was. And they're very interesting if you look at them, because they look very similar. Some were found in the Peru's, in the pyramids in Central America, and the ones that are found in the Middle East, they look very much alike. So you can tell they probably have the same author. Okay. Also, out of the Encyclopedia Britannica, let's see. I don't want to go too far into this. It's very complex. I'll just go to this. Many terracotta statues of Isis and her son Horus have survived the Roman Egypt. They are similar to the later statues of the Christian Madonna and Child, the Mother and Child. So this religion isn't new. You think the Catholic Church is the mystery religion? It kind of is. But the symbolism that's in the Catholic Church was way before the Catholic Church. It developed long before them. The Catholic Church has this symbol, this statues that they put of a woman with a golden cup. Right? That also arose early in the days of this mystery religion. You can still find it today in the Vatican and the Church of the Jesuits in Vatican City. Babylonians supremely worshipped a goddess mother and a son. Mother and son. Recognize that? Catholic Church has the statues of the mother and son. They call it Mary and baby Jesus. But they just renamed it. Exactly right, Susie. They just renamed the statue from what it was. It was the mother and son worship that originated, actually, I didn't put this in my notes, but it actually originated around the time of Semiramis, who was the wife of Nimrod. And we find in this research that Nimrod had died, but somehow magically Semiramis became pregnant. And she had a son. You know what his son was named? Her son was named? Tammuz. Tammuz. Yep, Tammuz. Right. And he was also said to be the resurrected Nimrod. So he rose from the dead, right? He became a baby. You see all the symbolism that the Catholic Church and, well, the mystery religion has come up with? And it's been carried down to this very day. In ancient Egypt, the mother and child were worshipped. In India, even to this day, Isis and Iswar. In Asia, Cybele and Diois. In pagan Rome, Fortuna and Jupiter Pure, meaning Jupiter the boy. In Greece, Ceres, the great mother, with the babe at her breast. Or Irene, the goddess of peace, with the boy Plutus. Let's see, in Tibet, China, and Japan, Jesuit missionaries were astonished to find the counterpart of the Madonna and her child to be devoutly worshipped, as it was done in papal Rome. They walked in there and they found that. Okay? Mother and child, just like in papal Rome. Xingmu, the Holy Mother in China, was being represented with a child in her arms. The original of that mother was widely worshipped. There's reason to believe that she was Semiramis. There's another name for Semiramis that appears up in some of the research. But essentially, she's part of the underlying cause of this mystery religion that came up. And it still exists today. Okay. In Chaldea, which the area of Babylon is in, there were what called sacred sciences. I'm going to bring this up for a reason. The sacred sciences, do anyone know what those sacred sciences were, by the way? They were, let's see if I can see them right quick, math and astronomy. So why would you want to keep those secret? Because you had knowledge somebody else didn't have. That's why. You could tell when the next eclipse was going to be. And you could use that to show your great power by blotting out the moon or blotting out the sun and then calling it back. So they had all these, and they were kept, all these secrets were kept by the priests and were not handed out. And that's part of what goes on with the mystery religion, is that the inside stuff is kept secret. And that practice actually continues into the Catholic Church, or continued into the Catholic Church. They're perhaps not quite as bad as they used to be because of the advent of all the information society that's around us out there. But they used to be really bad. How can we tell that? Well, for one thing, they held the Mass in a language nobody understood. Right? They spoke the Mass in Latin, right? They don't do it anymore, but they used to, for centuries, they spoke the Mass in Latin. And the only one who understood Latin was the priest and maybe a few helpers of his. So they're the only ones that knew that was going on, what the priest was actually saying up before the sun god that was perked on the altar. Okay, so we talked about the doctrine of the Trinity, where that came from. In India, the supreme divinity in one of the ancient cave temples is represented with 3 heads on one body. In Japan, the Buddhists worship their great divinity with 3 heads. And it's under the name of San Pao Fu. So these have all existed from ancient times. So at any rate, the recognition of the Trinity is not something new. It's been around since the days of Nimrod and before the flood even, because they didn't just think this stuff up. So it's admitted that the secret system of the Freemasonry today was originally founded on the mysteries of the Egyptian Isis, the mystery religion out of Egypt. So when we talk about the mystery religion, it's not limited to the Catholic Church. And that's one point I wanted to get across, because we are surrounded by the effects of the mystery religion. If you go do some research on secret societies in the United States, you'll find the Freemasons are a secret society. You cannot just join the Freemasons. Yes, the Shriners. The Shriners are actually also Freemasons. So you cannot just walk in and join that group. You have to be invited in. And then when you get invited in, you still don't know. You have to go through all of their different levels before you can get exposed to much. And if they think that you're not quite going along with the program, you don't get to go up. So their stuff is all secret. Now you can find out about it, because there are people who have come out of it and written books about it, expose their lives to danger, because one of the things that happens with these is when you expose them, you suddenly turn up unalive. Unalive. You turn up missing, right. Skull and Bones is another one. President Bush was part of that group. Illuminati is another one. Exactly right. Opus Dei, that's another one that's out there. The Bilderberg groups are a fairly recent one. They've been around since the mid-50s, and they're a private group that tries to take care of the world finances and industry, and they try to rule it, to keep control of it. And there's some very rich people who are part of that group. And once again, you cannot join it. Any of these groups. No. Rosicrucians. That's a Catholic group. Rosicrucians, you cannot just join them. The Knights Templar, you can't join them anymore either. They're not even around. But they were a very secret group. And they did some very powerful work. Now, when I'm talking about all these groups, I'm not saying that they don't do some good. I'm not saying that at all. It's just like in the garden. They took the tree of good and evil. So they do some good, but they also do some evil. They don't teach the way that God says for us to live. They teach their own version of that. Believe it or not, Oddfellows is another one. That's another secret group you cannot just join. And when you do, you still don't know it all. You have to be trained. Well, we have to be trained, don't we? What's wrong with that? We're being trained, but we're not secret, are we?
No.
Anybody can walk up to us and ask us, what is it that makes us love this way so much, and we'll tell them about it.
Amen.
So the thing is that we're not a secret, but all these societies are. God's way is not secret. It's open. Yeah, God tells us what He wants us to do. And He tells us, here it is, just do it. Walk this way. So what does the Bible have to say about this system? Let's turn over to Ezekiel 8 verse 6. And we'll start there because we want to know who this is talking about. Remember when Ezekiel lived? Anybody? Sorry? They're in Babylon, right. Ezekiel 8:6, yes.
8:6.
Yeah. I'm breaking into the thought here. It says, He said furthermore to me, Son of man, see what they do? the great abominations that the house of Israel commits here. So he's talking about house of Israel here, right?
Yeah.
Where was the house of Israel at this point? The house of Israel was in captivity. They were gone. They had been gone over 100 years. This is not talking about the nation of Israel. It's talking about the house of Israel. So two different things. Okay. Verse 12. Have you seen what, Son of man, have you seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark? Every man in the chambers of his imagery? Well, they say the Lord doesn't see us, and the Lord has forsaken the earth. All things remain the same, right? Where is God? All things remain the same. This is part of this religion. Notice verse 14. He brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was towards the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. This is God is talking about the mystery religion. God talks about the mystery religion a lot. They're weeping for Tammuz in the door of the gate of the Lord's house, worshiping false gods. Well, we know that that's exactly what Israel did. They worshiped false gods. That's what caused them to be cast out. He brought me to the inner court, verse 16, of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs towards the temple of the Eternal, and their faces toward the east, and they worshiped the sun towards the east. Sun worship.
Yeah.
Babylonian mystery religion. That's the source of it. So God threw out Israel as in part for being a part of this religious worship, this false religion. Even we saw in Daniel 5, Belshazzar was caught up in this. He made a great feast, as in verse 1. And he took the gold and silver vessels, which came out of the temple that was in Jerusalem, that had been captured by his father. That's verse 2. And then verse 4 says, they drank wine and praised the gods of gold, of silver, of brass, and iron and wood, and of stone. And we all know what happened after he did that. The handwriting was on the wall, so to speak. It didn't take long before they were history, did it? So, let's turn back to 2 Thessalonians. And we're going to see what's going to happen to this Babylonian mystery religion. Because it's all around us. And the whole world is influenced even though they don't know it. Because they have secret societies. And all the Catholic Church did was they just adopted this stuff all the way down the line. Everywhere they would go, like we talked about, they went into Mongolia. Was it Mongolia? I think it was Mongolia, where they found the Madonna and the Child. The Jesuits did. So they found nothing new everywhere they went. They just have different names for everything. So you can see why it was no big deal for all these different religions to just come right up under the Catholic religion, because it was really all the same religion. It was all Babylonian mystery religion. 2 Thessalonians 2:3, let no man deceive you by any means, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God, or he's proclaiming that he is God. So this man that's going to pop up as the head of this mystery religion is going to exalt himself. That's what popes do, by the way. Popes exalt themselves. They go out in these fancy clothes, and they get in their car and run around and bless the people. And the people line up down the side of the roads for his blessing. So he exalts himself. Now, I'm not saying that Pope is the man of sin, by the way. But there is going to be a man of sin who's going to do this. Verse 7, for the mystery of iniquity does already work. Paul recognized that it was already in place. In fact, he probably recognized how long it had been around too. Verse 8, and then the wicked will be revealed. That wicked will be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the spirit of his coming and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. So we know that this is going to go on until when? Christ's return, right? Going to destroy with the brightness of his coming. Okay? Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. So whoever this individual is going to have power. He's going to stand up and say, I'm God, and he's going to have power. And so that if it were possible, it would deceive even us. It won't deceive us. Why? Because we know who he is. We know who he is. Right. We know that when Jesus returns, every eye will see it.
Amen.
Right? Every eye will see it. It's not going to be some secret thing. Not going to pop up out of nowhere saying, I'm God. Okay. Let's see. Verse 11. For this cause God shall send them strong delusions, they should believe a lie, that they might all be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. So, see, God's way is not hard to see and read. If you pick up the Bible, you can read it. You can understand it. But people don't do that. They don't pick up the Bible and read it. And even those who do, many of them are only reading it to verify or to enforce what they already believe. They don't want to believe what God has to say. Even amongst Sabbath keepers, that problem still springs up. We have brethren in the church who don't keep the holy days. And they come up with the same excuses that the Catholics give you for keeping Sunday. These exact same excuses. So they don't accept what God has to say about keeping his Sabbaths. And as much as I love those brethren, they're not keeping what God has to say. And hopefully at some point they'll come around. But we just need to pray for them. All right, now let's go back to Revelation 17 and get to the real crux of what's going on here today. The real end of it all. Revelation 17, verse 1. Then came one of the seven angels which had the 7 vials and talked with me and said to me, Come here. I'll show you the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters. And we're going to find out who that is here in a minute. With whom, this whore, the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Yikes. The inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with that religion that she's promoting. I wonder why they would say that. Well, let's keep reading. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, we're not going to go into that symbolism today, except that this scriptures here are going to explain it a little bit for us, enough that we can just get past it. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color. What's important about that? Huh? Well, purple is the color of royalty, right?
Yes.
And scarlet is the color of blood. Yeah. Whoredom. Right? Okay. Let's see.
Decked in gold and precious stones.
Yes, decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand. And we talked about the golden cup. You can still see the woman with the golden cup in the Vatican. Well, that image, that statue's been around since the flood. Nimrod was the one who first created it. Let's see. In her cup, in her hand, was full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was the name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, Mother of Harlots, and the abominations of the earth. Mother of harlots, you see that? So there are those which came out of her, which are harlots. That's pretty strong language, isn't it? Why would God put this in His Word, saying that these that came out of her were harlots? Because they're doing the same thing she is. Harlotry life, right? They're full of idolatry. Exactly right. They're not willing to open the book and say, "Oh, God says keep my Sabbaths. I better do that." They say, "Oh, it's good enough for my daddy, good enough for my grandpappy. I'll just keep Sunday." Never bothered to open the book. Angel said to me in verse 7, "Why did you marvel? I'm going to tell you the mystery of this woman and of the beast that carries her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast which you saw was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. So at this time, when John wrote this down, that beast was and is not. That's an interesting comment, isn't it? And it's going to come back. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. So what does that mean about us? We ain't going to be surprised. We're not going to wonder at it. That's what it means. We're going to look at it and say, yeah, that's what God said is going to happen. That's what's happening. Here's the mind which has wisdom. The 7 hands are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Now, a lot of people say, well, 7 mountains, Rome sits on 7 mountains. Right? But notice what it says after that. And there are 7 kings, 5 are falling, 1 is, another is not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short space. We know that mountains are often symbolizing a country or a people, right? So it could mean the city of Rome, it could mean another city, who knows? But we have to keep our minds open to whatever comes. We don't want to get fixated on Rome and find out that we've completely missed where this is coming from. So there's going to be 7 kings, and at this time they wrote this down. 5 had already fallen, 1 was, and the other's not yet come. And we're still waiting for that one to come, aren't we? The beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th. And of the 7, it goes into perdition. And we could go back and read the earlier Revelation to find out what that's talking about. We're not that important. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom, but received power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. And we know that that's exactly what's going to happen with these 2 beasts that are going to pop up. One of them beast is the false prophet, and the other one is the great national power that's going to enforce the word of the false prophet. And he shall make war with the Lamb. And the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And there with him are called and chosen and faithful. So they're going to make war with Jesus when he comes back. So we're going to see this entity pop up in its full, unvarnished form. Unmistakable, this mystery Babylonian religion. It is going to be teaching blasphemous things. Keep Sunday. It's already teaching blasphemous things. It's already teaching blasphemy, isn't it? It's saying that the Pope has the power to change what God had to say. You know, that's the first thing that came to my mind when I was in Catholic school. I asked about the 4th commandment. And the nun, honestly, she said to me, well, that day's Saturday, but the Pope changed it to Sunday. As if it was nothing. And the thought came into my head, just sitting there listening to it, I says, who is a man who can change what God had to say? And that's the thought should come into our head too. When we see these evil people out there proclaiming that God has changed this and changed that.
And you were a kid when you heard that.
Yeah, I was in 4th or 5th grade.
Yep.
So the thing is, for us, we need to be the same way, though. We need to think that when we see these evil people who come up, that we go, well, who is the man who can change what God had to say? God put it in his word. Why? He didn't change it in his word. Who's the man that can change that? Okay, so let's move on. I got distracted there, sorry. Verse 15, the waters which you saw where the horse sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So this particular individual, this whore, the lady with the gold cup and the blasphemies on the inside, she comes out of all the peoples of the earth. Well, we already know that's happened because we've already been reading about that. In all these different religions around the world, they're all the same. They just got different names for stuff. You know, little small variations in their theology, but it's all essentially the same. And it's no wonder why the Catholics could easily move into every area and say just adopt their customs because they are already their customs. The 10 horns which you saw upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So these guys give everything to her, but they hate her. They give all the power to her, but they hate her. Isn't that odd? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Give your power to somebody that you hate. Doesn't make any sense, does it? Well, Satan's way doesn't make sense at all, does it? No, not if you understand God's word. Revelation 18, oh, by the way, verse 17, 18. Woman, which you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. Now, I have heard a lot of people say, well, that's Rome. Rome reigns over all the cities of the earth. But if you look around right now, Rome doesn't reign over all the cities of the earth. So what city might that be? Something to consider, isn't it? Well, the United States is not a city, is it? So, let's see if we can figure out who that is. Revelation 18, verse 1. After these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having a great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So Babylon the Great is a place, right? It has to be. It's a habitation, right? It's a place. Well, talking about is falling and is fallen, turn back to Isaiah 21, verse 6. Just a few verses here. For thus has the Lord said unto me, Go, set a watchman, let him declare what he sees. And he saw a chariot with a couple of horsemen, and a chariot of asses, a chariot of camels. And he hearkened diligent with much heed. And he cried, A lion! My Lord, I stand continually upon the watchtower in the daytime, and I am set in my ward whole nights. And behold, here comes a chariot of men with a couple of horsemen. And he answered and said, Babylon is fallen. It is fallen. We just read that, didn't we, in Revelation? And all the graven images of her gods he has broken into the ground. Wow. Come back to Jeremiah 51:5 now. Just a few verses here also. Jeremiah 51:5. Just a few verses. For Israel has not been forsaken, nor Judah his God, of the Lord of hosts. Remember, this is Jeremiah speaking. Where was Israel? Gone. They're in captivity. But he's saying Israel's not forsaken. Neither is Judah. Even though Judah was in captivity at this time too. Verse 6. Flee out of the midst of Babylon. Get out of there. Deliver every man his soul. Well, we're supposed to get out of Babylon, right? We just read that in Revelation. We've got to come out of her. To be not part of her evil. Flee out of the midst of Babylon. Deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity. For this is the time of the Eternal's vengeance. He will render unto her a repayment. Babylon has been a golden cup. There's your image again. In the Lord's hand. Yeah, it's in the Lord's hands. God's using this entity that made all the earth drunk. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. They're insane. Can you ever look around at our governments and go, what are they thinking about? Are they crazy? Yeah. It's okay for men to go into women's restrooms. Is that crazy?
I do that. Men's restrooms are dirty. I want to wait in line.
You're too much, Rick.
I'm being funny. I have done that.
Yeah. Well, when emergencies happen, but that's not, they were trying to say that it doesn't matter which room you go into it. But I saw a video here. I'm getting aside now. I saw a video guy that was talking about this last week, and he said, well, you might think it's okay for you to go in the restroom where my daughter is, but I guarantee you I'm not going to have a problem with it. Okay, flee out of the midst of Babylon. Babylon's been a golden cup. Verse 8, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. So Babylon is coming back to is fallen. So God puts that in there several times for us to read. So let's go back to Revelation 18:3 now. Back to 18, yeah, Revelation 18. We left off with verse 2. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Did you know that over half of the profit that retailers make happens in Christmas time?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where they make their year usually. So they're making themselves rich off of this evil. I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people. Come out, that you be not partakers of her sins, that you receive not of her plagues." Get away from it. Stay away from it. For her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Let's get down to verse 8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day. One day. Death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. It's going to be burned up, right? That verse 10, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, is for one hour your judgment has come. The merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buys their merchandise anymore. The merchandise of gold, silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, and scarlet, and all tiny wood, and all manner of vessels of ivory, and all manner of vessels of most precious wood, and of brass and iron and marble, and cinnamon and odors and ointments, and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men. Wow. That's something else, isn't it?
Yeah.
The merchants, verse 15, the merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, that great city which was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. In 1 hour so great riches has come to naught, come to nothing. And every shipmaster, notice that's not in there by accident, every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like to this great city? So this city is going to be destroyed, burned up in an hour. There's a great city where there's a lot of commerce going on. This is why people are saying, well, that sounds like New York to me. That's why they're saying that. She goes, I don't see why they say that. Well, this is why. It's the greatest port in the world in New York. And all that commerce goes through New York. And there's a lot of centralized money up there as well. Verse 19 says, in 1 hour she was made desolate. So, is New York the place? I don't know. I'm not going to say it is. I'm not going to say it's wrong. I'm not going to say it's not. And the reason I'm not is I want us all to keep it clear in our minds, not to get distracted by what men teach, but to know what God says so that when it happens, we recognize it. Right. Like Jesus told his disciples, I'm telling you this ahead of time so when it comes to pass, you'll know. Well, that's what God is saying here with this. I'm telling you this now so that when it comes to pass, you'll recognize it. He doesn't want us to get caught up in this evil. He wants us to recognize it and get away from it. You know, like the camp of Israel did whenever Korah, Dathan, and Abiram spoke up. What did they do? Somebody remembers? Moses said, what? Get away from them, right? Right? So the whole camp of Israel moved away from them and their families. And what happened? The ground opened up. The ground opened up and swallowed them. Exactly right. So the idea is the same for us today. Get away from it, because God's going to swallow that up. He's going to destroy it with fire. So Babylon's all around us. It is. It's all around us. We just don't see it in every place we look. And most people don't even recognize it. They're just a part of the system, and it looks fine to them. They're happy with it. You know, as long as they get their paycheck on Friday and bought their six-pack on Saturday night, they're happy. Got their football game on Sunday. Hey, I like football games on Sunday. What am I saying? But they go along with everything because they're happy with it. They're not interested in what God has to say. They're interested enough to open up their Bibles and say, God says keep his Sabbath. God says don't hate my brother. So most but not all people don't know that they're caught up in it. But there are some who know. And these people are promoting this evil.
Well, you know, every day, not to break it out, but every day when you turn on the television, especially if you watch the news, they talk so much about the New York Stock Exchange.
Yes.
And everything financially is based on what's happening with that stock exchange. And even when the Twin Towers came down, the hit that everybody got, it shook everybody in the United States.
Yes.
Not just in the United States, but
around the world. Yeah.
You know, so I could see your thought about New York.
Right. I mean, what isn't my thought? I'm just saying some people think that. I don't want to say that that's what I believe. I'm just saying that there are people who think that. And this is the reason why they think it.
Yeah.
Okay, so at any rate, God said that in the end he's going to bring it down though. He's going to tear it down.
Yeah.
He's going to bring it to an end, and he's going to establish a kingdom where there's going to be peace, where there's going to be joy, where there's going to be a loving king on a throne, where he's going to be working towards the end of all disease and all death, and bringing more and more children to God. So let's rejoice that God showed us what's coming. He's opened our eyes to see it, so that we're not deceived. Let's be happy and rejoice before God that he cared enough about us to open our eyes, to show it to us. So we can, when we see it, we'll recognize it. And let's give praise to God as he brings that evil system to a close.